Hi teachers, welcome to day 4 of the Piano Pivot. My name is Nicola Canton and with me is the wonderful Tim Topham as usual. We're so excited to bring day 4 to you, even if you're a little bit scared about tidying up all that music. And we had so much fun yesterday with day 3 talking about all these different ideas of things people want to bring into their teaching. I saw people talking about practice skills, improvisation, chords, lead sheets, memorization, and telling stories through music, which I thought was wonderful. There was a comment just recently in the group about someone who's going to do a whole recital that tells a story with all the different pieces with storytelling in between to bring out that idea. So I thought that was absolutely wonderful. Tim, did you have any favorite comments from yesterday or ideas people had?
Yeah, well, look, I had to pick up on Kathy, who we had she was on the live call yesterday, and so we were bouncing some ideas back and forth about musicality for students. So I was really interested to see her sheet, which was looked like this. I don't know if you can you see that okay? Like
yeah, it's, I can kind of see, yeah.
It's so comprehensive.
Cool.
Yeah. Really, and you can see that these ideas that we've discussed have just given her 100 other ideas, which is all great, and we'll help you try and refine them on our wrap-up day, of course. But the two I'm gonna pick bookends, her number 1 and her number 5, just to show you how she went through this. So one of the things she wanted her students to be able to do was play, practice, and think musically. So the activities to prioritize for her for that was to help the student observe musical signposts in the score and allow the individual to express what they feel in the music, what it says to them. So I think that's rather than sort of saying, you know, because there's a crescendo here, we've got to do that, and this is how I would phrase this. It's more like, over to you. I want to get you thinking musically about it. What does this mean? How does it make you feel? What does the title mean? So I thought that was a really great approach. And her number 5 was improvise. So one thing that she'd like her students to be able to do is improvise. And so for her, the activities to prioritize was to play and explore chords, chord progressions, and reading lead sheets, exploring the progressions in pieces being learnt, which is really, really important, making those connections between the music they're learning and, you know, the theoretical constructs of music, and playing and creating new accompaniments, changing styles, keys, and ideas in pieces. So that's great. And that's, again, that's a lot of things for just one topic, but it's great that you've thought about those, and then it's a matter of working out how to incorporate them into the lessons. So I thought that was a great approach. It was really, we were trying to get you to think really structured from that thing that you want the student to be able to do, to what you have to do in lessons, to at the bottom, how can you find out, how can you get help on that? Or do you need to practice it yourself? What is it you need to do? That can go down the bottom. Yeah, so well done to Kathy and to everyone else who shared their ideas. It's so good. And I must say, Nicola, we've been seeing people who are just now watching the first video because they've been busy or life gets in the way. Totally understand. So it's still great to see these things coming through. So even if you're watching this video a week later, pop your comments in and share these great pages that we've put together in the playbook. It's really wonderful to see what people are doing.
Yeah, keep coloring in and keep sharing them with us, you know, no matter when you're watching this. Yeah, because they're so fun to look through after putting it all together. Seeing what different teachers are doing with it all over the world is just awesome.
I've got to say, sorry, I've just seen a comment from Rosie who says she can finally join for 15 minutes before teaching. Now, Rosie, you're in Melbourne. That means you've got to teach at 8:30 a.m. That's an early lesson. I'm impressed. So hopefully you can watch the video if it loads.
Yeah.
We're definitely here.
Must be some students before school, or?
Yeah, must be. Yeah, let us know, Rosie, if you're there.
Crazy. Yeah, keep the highs and the hellos coming in from wherever you're listening. It's wonderful to see all the comments from all over the world. Well, we're going to dive into today's topic because it's a pretty big one, because we're talking about your music. So it might be literally pretty big, probably is, in your studio. It's probably all over the place. Might be very organized. I saw one comment from someone who said, this is one area that I've got covered. That's great if that's you, but it's not most of us, I don't think. So we're talking about your physical music, your books, today, for a few different reasons. And it's kind of interesting that this is on day 4, actually, because I think it ties really well with the teaching priorities in philosophy, because we actually teach through our music, right? So if we don't have the right music to hand, then we can't do the things that we want to do if we don't have the right resources. But some of us go a bit overboard and we purchase all the things for all the ideas instead of just the ones we want to do. And that's where it gets a bit out of hand. And this topic also ties in really well with tomorrow, Business Day, because you might be spending all of your money on music. And if you are, I'm afraid you have to stop. I know it's your favorite hobby, but we need to put a stop to it. We need to make it more business-minded in a way, unless it's for your own personal practice, and then go, fire ahead. But most of it, we just end up hoarding students' music that we're never actually going to use for students. So if that's you, hopefully today is going to help you with that. While we're sharing strategies today, and you'll see in the workbook, there's an audit sheet and all these things, and I'd love for you to fill this in either live on the call or after you get off this video. But some of these things you will have to do in person, in your studio space or wherever you keep all your music. So keep in mind that a lot of this you can do in your head, like your top books. Those are going to come to mind straight away, probably when you're reading it, and you can just write them in. You probably don't need to look at them to know what they are. But if there's things that you have to do in person, such as actually physically organizing them, what I want you to do is put in that audit date. At the top, there's a date for audit, and that's when you're actually going to do this, when you're going to implement it. And I suggest that if at all possible, well, either you do this during this week. If you have time at the moment, awesome, bonus points to you. If you don't, I suggest you make an appointment with yourself during your break. Now, I know it's taking time out of your break, but it really is the best time to do it, because you'll get it done and you'll hit the refresh button when you go in back in January, or maybe it's February if you're in Australia. And yeah. So don't skip out on that part. Please set the actual date and put it in your actual calendar that you actually use, whether that's Google Calendar or your planner or whatever it is that actually works for you and is how you set up appointments with yourself. If you needed to go to the doctor, where would you put that? Put this in there. It's important. Okay, so with that said, let's get on with step 1. Which is all about what you actually have already in your collection. What we've said in the workbook is that we want your top 10. These are your go-to books. These are the books that you reach for again and again when a student comes up against this, or that they're your favorite method books or whatever they are. What are the books that you use the most? And what I'd love is if people could leave their top 3 of these in the comments. Just your very top 3. What are the ones that you absolutely could not live without, could not teach without? Do you have a top 3 for us, Tim? What would go in that for you?
Just before I do that, I would mention too, if you're going to pop method books in there, then don't put level 1, level 2, level 3 or anything. Just say, Alfred method or Piano Safari, just because there's going to be too much stuff there. My top ones, I've got a mix of, there's one of my favorite books is one that I did a repertoire rap on earlier this year, which is, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's got all those great new age film type music pieces in it, which are fantastic for teenagers. And I use that pretty much if I've got a teenager in the studio and they've got a middle to intermediate level. That's a great book. They love it. I love Daniel McFarlane's music for fun pieces, particularly for hooks, for bringing kids back if they're just on the brink of I'm not too sure what's going on. And then I've got some of those classical pieces. So, Bergmüller Ballade, that is a piece that I will always love teaching. Kids enjoy. So there's a set with that in it. So I'd be putting that on my list. And of course, I'd be putting my new books that I've just created for the AMEB on that list as well, because they're full of all my favorite pieces. I'm very lucky to be in that position where I've got a series of books of my own. What about you, Nicola?
Top method would be Piano Safari, and I have a lot of younger beginners, so I'd have to put that in there. Levels 1, 2, and 3. No, I'm only messing. After that, I'd have to pick out probably a Jennifer Eklund book, just for bringing back the teens that I get who have burned out through exams, have never played pop, and actually can't read very well. So they need something that's easy but sounds really cool. So probably my go-to of Jennifer Eklund's would be Spotlight Solos 1, or maybe Plus, would be between those two. And then my third one would be harder to choose. Oh, probably the Masterwork Classics series, actually. I really love the way that's compiled. It's a really good mix of different repertoire. It comes with a CD with great performances on it so that kids can listen to it. And kids genuinely enjoy the pieces, even though they're dull and have no illustrations or anything like that. So I really like the way they're put together by Jane McGrath.
Yeah, and I can guarantee that if I went downstairs and had a look at my collection, I'd think of a whole lot of other ones. So this is just, what we're doing now is getting you thinking. So you might find that when you go into your shelves, you go, actually, this is one. And the good thing about doing this activity in the audit is that you're going to find stuff that you've totally forgotten about that is going to be a winning piece. So keep that in mind too. There's some great comments coming through from people too, which is great.
It's wonderful seeing all the top threes. I just wanted to mention, Linda said that she only has 2 weeks off for Christmas and it's filled with family and friends. I totally get that. However, I also have only 2 weeks off for Christmas, so I am in the same region as you. I do get it. And it's full of other stuff. That doesn't mean you don't put this in your calendar though. Maybe it's not during the break for you, but find the spot for it because it is important, and scheduling it is the only way that it's going to happen once and for all, and it'll save you so much time in the long term. So keep your top threes coming in. Sorry, Jim, do you want to say something?
I was just going to say, Catherine's mentioned syllabus, sight reading, oral book. I would be leaving them aside for now. They're kind of reference books which we'll always be using. So I'm not sure if that's why you put them there, Catherine, but I'd be focusing on repertoire for this activity. Yeah.
Awesome. So the next thing to look at is what you never use. And this will be something that you do really in depth when you actually have that audit date, when you sit down with all your music. But that's the other category that I want you to have. In fact, there's 3 categories. So there's, I always use this, I never use this, and I'm never going to, if you're really honest. And then there's, I want to rethink about this. So the never uses, when you're really honest with yourself, if you just look at them, you'll be like, I always mean to do this. It's a cool idea, but actually it does not fit with my teaching. So if you can't even imagine yourself using it and fitting in with it, then it has to go away. It has to leave your studio because it's just getting in the way. If you are someone who is extremely reluctant to get rid of your never uses, what I want you to do is take a leaf out of the organization gurus and put it in a box, put all these things in a box and put them at the back of a closet or the back of a wardrobe or something. If you do not take them out to use them with a student within 6 months, then you have to get rid of them. It's a rule for getting rid of clothes and all this sort of stuff. And it does work because you realize you do not miss that stuff at all. So if you're really reluctant, do that. If not, take it straight to the charity shop, give it away to students. I saw a picture today in the group with someone with stuff stacked on their stairs that had a sign saying free for students. So she was already just giving stuff away. So that's awesome. Do that. Let them take it home to explore it or whatever, because you are not using it. If there is stuff that you want to reassess, that'll be the things that it really does align with your teaching philosophy. It's something you are interested in using, but you just haven't managed to integrate it yet. So you need to make a better plan to do that. And you need to rethink about that later if you still don't use it in a year's time. But for now, if there is stuff that you'd love to incorporate into your teaching, but you just haven't found the right way, however, you do agree with the way it's set up and everything about it, that's going to go in the reassess pile. I'm going to rethink about how I could fit this into my teaching. And the other thing that would go in the reassess pile is that stuff that your students haven't gotten to yet. So if your students are just at a beginner level and you think this would be perfect for them when they are teenagers, then maybe you want to hang on to some of that stuff. That's kind of fair enough if they're just not at the level for it yet. But you have to be able to envision yourself definitely using it for it to stay in your studio and not go in that never use box. So once you have all that stuff, now this is going to be on audit day, you're going to make those 3 piles and you've cleared out all this space. We're going to organize it in a second, but before we do that, step 2, we're going to look at how you get new stuff, because there's a reason all of these books ended up in your studio, and it's because you bought them, or maybe you were given them as freebies, but you took them off someone and you put them on your shelves and they never touched them again. So how do you look at new music? How are you going to assess it going forward? Now, the first thing we want to look at in this area, and this is in the workbook, is how much time and money you're actually spending on new music. Now, time and money. So how much money are you spending? We're gauging that at about 2% of your income, maybe around that. If it's a little bit under or over, that's fine, no problem. If you're spending 10% of your income on new music, please stop. We need to change that, because you're just throwing all your money away and this is your business. So in or around 2% is what we're suggesting maybe for that. And then for the time, what I want you to include when you think about that is all of the time you spend on new music. So it's not just going to the music store or going on Amazon. It's the time you spend thinking about new pieces, researching it, asking for opinions in Facebook groups, and the time you spend playing through all that new music when you get it to test it out, or looking through it and making notes on it. All of that time is included in that, and we're suggesting about 8% of your teaching hours, that is. So say you teach 20 hours a week, that would be like an hour and a half of all of those things altogether on average. Obviously, some weeks you'll spend tons of time, like the week before new term starts or whatever, but some weeks you won't spend any, and that's fine. An average of around an hour and a half. So have a good think about how much time you are genuinely spending on searching for new repertoire, exploring it in your studio, and assessing what student it's going to be for.
And notice
Does that all make sense?
Yeah. Notice that we've used a percentage of the hours that you're teaching a week. So if you're only actually teaching 10 hours a week, if you've got a smaller studio, then that won't be an hour and a half. It'll be probably 45 minutes or something. If you're teaching 40 hours a week, then you're going to need to spend more time. And so that's why we're looking at it as a percentage. And as Nicola says, these are suggestions. They're not set in concrete at all. They're just a way for you to gauge whereabouts you might be sitting. Because if 20% of your income is going on new books and you have just boxes and boxes of this stuff, then you might need to go on one of those television programs about hoarding.
Hoarders, yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to make one caveat to that, which is if you are a new teacher, those numbers are going to be higher. They just are. Like in the beginning, you're going to spend a lot longer trying to figure out if this new book is right for your student. You're going to spend more time researching them online because you won't be as familiar with all the different methods and with how to gauge levels and that kind of stuff. Like it just is a lot harder in the beginning. So for the first 2 or 3 years maybe of your business, this might be more time and it might be more money because you need to build up a collection of stuff you genuinely love. But if you're an old teacher, if you've been teaching for a while, you should know better, and please stop.
And for those of you who haven't realised, we've got calculations on this. You can't really see it. Oh, there we go. On the sheet here. So the only one thing I'd add is you'll need to know the number of hours that you currently teach before you do that first calculation. Yeah. But just fill in the blanks there. If you don't do it now, at some stage in the next couple of days, it'll be really instructive to help you work out where you should be at.
Yeah, just where you are. It's really interesting to try and tabulate all these things and give yourself an honest estimate on how much you're spending. So once you have this system for how much time and how much money you're going to spend on new music, you're going to decide on that in your workbook. And then you need to design a process that you can follow that means that it gets used. Okay, that means that you put it to good use, or decide it's not for you. If if that's what you decide, that's totally fine. So whether it's sticking Post-its on it, or putting a whole Excel spreadsheet together, or having an iPad app that's like one of those library apps where you input all the information, or maybe you just literally write Freddie on the front because it's for Freddie straight away, and you just put it aside for him, or maybe it goes in his folder. So if you immediately have a student that comes to mind, awesome, just put it straight aside for them and give it to them straight away. Otherwise, you need to have a system of noting the important things as you go through it. And that'll be different depending on what it is. But you need to take a good look at that music before you put it on your shelf, and have some way of deciding how it will be used. And Tim might have a few tips for us on exploring music, because I know with your AMAB project, that was probably a big part of it.
Yeah, it was. Look, I mean, I spent the best part of, 4 months, I guess, going through thousands and thousands of books in order to put together these new exam books. And so, yeah, I got very, very efficient at very quickly making decisions on musical pieces. And I've got two different processes depending on whether music's in a book or whether I have a studio license and they're printed. So for me, what I tend to do is have a suspension file in a filing cabinet for all of my students. And in there, I put things that I need to give them at the next lesson. And that could be, if it's a printed music that I can print out, then I'll put that in. If it's a book that I know that they'll get lots of value from, then I'll put that in their suspension file as well. I find this has been the best way for me to keep track of things, because I can also put a little reminder note in there as well. If I suddenly think of something, I'll just chuck it in there. Or if they leave something at my house, again, I'll put it in that suspension file, and every lesson I can get it out and go, you left this here last time, here's your new book, and I think you'll like this piece, sort of thing. So it takes away some of the thinking I have to do. So for me, at the start of the year, I spend a fair bit of time in a bit of a block selecting those books and pieces that I think the students will like and putting them into the suspension folders. But for that big sort of going through repertoire, I like Post-it notes and pencils. So I'll play through an entire book. I'll be interested to know if anyone else does this. So let's say you've bought a new book, or you've been given one or recommended one. I'll sit down, I'll play through every single piece in the book, and I'll quickly give it a 3, 2, or 1 tick rating on the top of the piece. Okay. So 3 ticks is this is the most awesome piece. Kids are going to love it. 2 ticks, it's okay. 1 tick, it's okay. No ticks, that's not a piece that I'm going to teach ever. And so by the end of it, I have an idea of how many pieces in that book I think are valuable. And then I can put on the front a sticker saying, I think this book's going to be suited for X, Y, or Z. Or maybe 2 Post-it notes, because it's going to be great for Julie and Sam, and maybe I need to buy another copy for that other person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I like the 3 ticks too. I think that's good. In terms of organizing for actual students, I do a very similar thing. It's just separate manila folders, but I just pop the book straight in there when I know a student is going to need that, and I just put it inside. So, which brings us neatly to step 3, which is that you need to organize all this music that you currently have sitting in your piles on your floor, because I've made you take it all out and look at all of it. So it's sitting everywhere, and you need a way to put it away now that you've decided what you're going to keep. The thing I want to stress with this is that it's about how you think of your music. And what I mean by that is, when you think, oh, that piece that went like da-da-da would be great for Timmy, how do you remember what book it was in? Because different ones of us will think of it in a different way. Some people might immediately call to mind what publisher it had. Some people might think of the composer. Some people might think of the color of the book. It really doesn't matter what it is you think of, but that's the way it should be filed for you. The way I think of music is I think of it normally by what series it belongs to. So if it's an actual method book series, that makes sense. If it's, say, supplements, like I use a lot of Piano Pronto supplements, Jennifer Eklund, like I mentioned. The way I think of those is I think of them being Piano Pronto. So they're all together, and I automatically can remember whether it was Jennifer Eklund or one of the composers' community. which are her composers that are on her site, I can't always remember which one of those it was. So they're all together, and then Jennifer Eklund's are all together, and then the Method Book series are all together. So that's what makes sense for you. If you just heard that and go, I would never find anything in that system at all, that's fine. That's the way I remember it. So whatever way you remember your books, that's the way they should be organized, not the way that you think is standard or a library does it or a store does it.
Definitely not how libraries do it. Don't do that.
No.
I don't know. Dewey Decimal System, nothing. I must say, I tend to remember things by the covers and the colours. I can picture it, and it's frustrating because I'm not organised in that way at all, so it makes no sense. So you've made me think, maybe I should organise by
section and a blue section.
Somehow. Never thought of that, Nicola. You're amazing. Someone asked a little bit earlier, I just wanted to jump in and say, what to do with all this music that you're hopefully clearing out. You've got a few options there. Either there's a few people suggesting that they just have piles of music that their students can take, and we all know that one of the best ways to get students better reading and more ingrained in music is for them to have lots of music that they can just pick up and play at home or try to. So I think that's a great thing to do. Otherwise, giving it away to, we call them opportunity shops. What do you call them over there? Charity shops. That kind of thing. Or, if you can be bothered. Goodwill stores. If you can be bothered, you could sell it on a Craigslist or a Gumtree or something like that, and just say, "Come over. Every book's $1. Take what you want," sort of thing. It's really up to you a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be bothered doing that, but yeah, you totally could, or put it in. There are some piano teacher buy, sell, trade groups on Facebook. They're sort of US things. But if you are in a highly populated area, that might work. Otherwise, just make a lending library for students, give it away, or give it to charity shops. Just get it out of there.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't, the thought of trying to sell everything, just be too painful, I think. And there goes a whole lot of time that we're trying to save.
Exactly. Yeah, for like $10 or something in the end,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the actual system of organizing it, I find magazine files, they're the best for me because I can just put the label on the front, so whatever my crazy categories are, that's where they go. And they all go on shelves and they're all pretty well organized. The only thing that's not organized that I need to tackle over my break are all these old books of like classical standards. So like I have like big Beethoven books and stuff that I got them from a relative or whatever, but they just sit in my office. Like they're not even anywhere near my piano. So something needs to be done about that.
And a lot of us have, 4 versions of Chopin sonatas.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'll ever play a Chopin sonata, but I'll keep one book, but I don't need 4 of them. All the different editions with the front pages falling off and the binding apart and, all brown because it's from the 1900s or whatever. Anyway.
No, totally. So I'd love to know what people's current systems are. If you have a great one, share that. If you have one that makes absolutely no sense, share that. I will help you troubleshoot it and figure it out. The other thing that I wanted to quickly mention, because people asked about it when we mentioned we were going to be covering this topic, is digital studio licenses. So single licenses you normally buy for a specific student. I presume it goes in the student folder and you give it straight to them. That's fine, or you just have the parents buy it. With studio licenses, I get how it's a little bit trickier, but I want to encourage you not to print them ever just to have on hand. It's just such a waste of space. The whole point of them is that you can print them whenever you want them. So have a really good filing system on your computer that, again, makes sense to you under categories that you're going to be able to find that. So cool jazzy pieces could be one of the categories. I don't know. It doesn't matter what they are. It matters that you can find what you're looking for and keep them on your computer. Don't print them off until you need them for your lesson on Thursday. Okay? Don't print them off in advance. I just don't. Yes, you might want to play through them, but if you have an iPad or a tablet or something like that, you could just stick them on that and play through them yourself at the piano that way.
Yeah.
So studio licenses.
I tend to agree. Sorry, I lost you just for a minute there.
Yeah, no, there was just a little glitch there. Yeah,
a little glitch. I think we're okay. I tend to put all my studio licenses by composer because I just know, I know Daniel McFarlane's music's there, so I click his folder. It's all in Dropbox for me. But wherever it is on a computer, if you've got a Mac or a PC, they all have pretty good search functions now. So hopefully, if you're playing, let's say, a Jennifer Eklund piece and it's called Moonlight, and that's one of your winning pieces, then either you go to that folder, or if it's quite quick, on a Mac, if you've got a Mac, just hitting Command Spacebar brings up a search thing. Just type in Spotlight, bang, it's open, print it off when you need it. That's why I'm a big fan of studio licenses, because you don't have anything, you don't print anything until you need it.
No. Exactly. I just don't touch them until I'm going to assign them for a student. But I don't buy them until I'm giving them to a student either.
Yeah. Elizabeth says Google Drive to save computer space. Yeah, Google Drive, Dropbox, anything like that's great. Linda's saying she puts her extra repertoire into levels. So that was your filing system, Linda. So not by genre, but by levels. I think that's great. Hello, David. Just logged in. On Mac, I have a folder in the dock. So it just opens a menu with composers. Nice. That's Michael. That's great. Keep the comments coming, everyone. Carly says, I have a deluge of books, but find a reason that I need to keep each one of them. Yeah, I know. It's really hard to think the other way and go, will I really use this, or is it just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, if you're really torn, use that box in the back of the closet idea, because you will not touch that box. That's what will happen.
Yeah. Is everyone familiar with Marie Kondo's The Magic Art of Tidying? Are you familiar with that book?
If it brings you joy, right?
Yeah. I get ribbed a lot by my partner. I'm a bit of a DIY person. I like fixing things. And if you're a DIY person, you need to keep every nut, washer, bolt, bit of wood, glue, everything, right? Because you never know when you're going to need it. But I've recently come to the realization that I don't need boxes of bolts and nuts and screws and things, because when did I last use them? And in fact, I sold a whole lot of my tools the other day because I realized I hadn't used them for 4 years. So it is incredibly satisfying. And that Marie Kondo book, she's an unusual lady. I found some of the parts of the book a little bit crazy, I'm just going to be honest with you. But her main concept of deciding what you want by picking it up and go, does this give me joy? Does this actually give me joy? This bit of clothing, this book, or whatever it is, was kind of cool. So yeah, grab the book if you're interested. Yeah,
Ruth just left a comment there saying, that wouldn't work for me because everything gives me joy. I love music. So if that's the case, I want you to say, will I use this, is your new question.
Yeah, just forget everything.
That's what you're going to think about it. Yeah. So keep your suggestions coming in and your ideas about how to organize the music. We've just gone over the half hour again, so we might just give a look forward to what's coming up tomorrow and what's happening for the next 2 days, final 2 days.
Yeah, I'll do that. And I was just going to say, I came back from my most recent conference without purchasing any books. I was so proud of myself. I think conferences are one of the biggest problems for for music teachers when it comes to buying books. You know, all those shiny new books that we can buy, and we have to pay for all the excess baggage and stuff, and it just becomes so expensive. And I can picture, I bought some books of this classical technique right back when I was starting. I can picture them. They're kind of brown covered. I've never used them. I don't know why I still have them, and I should never have bought them. So when you're at your next conference, just think really carefully, who's this actually going to be useful for? If you're just buying it because it's kind of cool without a student in mind, then rethink it. Yeah. Okay, so while the new comments come, or the final comments come through, and if you've got any questions for Nicola or me or anyone in our Brains Trust who are live now, then pop a comment in. So a reminder, tomorrow, and I don't want everyone to get scared and not show up tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow's almost the most important. We're talking about the business, your financials, your numbers, and, well, 3 areas. So your numbers, so just knowing some of your key business numbers is just so important, everyone. productivity, increasing your productivity, and that's going to be really useful. One of the other reasons that we all feel overwhelmed very easily is because we simply don't have enough time. There's too many things competing for our time. So I'm going to share with you some ideas of how you can get more productive and how you can potentially do less of the things that you don't want to do. So make sure you're here for that one. That can have life-changing impacts, I guarantee it for you. And the third area we're going to look at is your income mix. So whether you can actually bring in some income from some different areas, and whether you should be sticking to the exact model that you're on now. So that's what tomorrow's all about. And as I mentioned yesterday, if you want to join us live filling out this worksheet, which I hope you can do, then the best thing to do is see if you can take a snapshot of 1 month's worth of your business financials from, just pick October or something like that, and try and work out as much as you can the amount of money that's come in and the amount of money that's gone out. If you've got some software like My Music Staff or Music Teacher's Helper, you can probably grab some of the figures from that. But for things like expenses, we had a question from, I think it was Cheryl, about mortgages. So if you're working from home and you're paying a mortgage, then you should be considering whether the room that you teach in or the half of the house that you use for your business, whether that can be a tax write-off depending on your jurisdiction. So whether you can actually claim a tax deduction, a business expense, for that part of the mortgage that you're paying, right? So I'll go into a little bit more detail tomorrow. It's going to be we're going to have to move really fast tomorrow because it's a big topic. But if you can possibly find out, how much is your power bill in a quarter? That's how we pay our bills over here anyway. Therefore, what is it for a month? And if you use half the house for running your business, then halve that, and that's your power bill. Don't get too specific. Let's just work with some basic figures and average things, and just give yourself an idea, though. It's going to be really eye-opening, I guarantee, for you, okay? Yeah. And if that whole mortgage thing doesn't make sense, then just don't worry about it. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, just to have an idea of the numbers. Like, we're not making you fill in an actual tax form, so you're not held to them. So just... I know Americans are terrified of their tax forms because they're horrible. So it's not going to be like that. It's going to be friendly. And just a few basic figures just to give you an idea of your income and your expenditure.
Yep, fantastic. And one other thing too, on the last day, so we're up to day 4, tomorrow's day 5, day 6 is our wrap-up day, and it's going to be really, really important that you can try and make that one. I think because we're going to pull every idea together and make you make some key decisions if you haven't done it already or you're putting it off. And we've put together a 2-page summary sheet for this, which isn't in your playbooks. So to grab that, we're going to pop a copy in the sheet, in the group, and I'm going to email it to you as well. But if you want to just jot down this address, in fact, I'll pop a comment in right now at timtopham.com/wrap-up. That is the link for the wrap-up sheet for day 6, our final wrap-up day. Okay?
Yep. And if people are looking for that, I'll do a post and I'll pin it to the top of the group. So if you're on your mobile phone, you'll just need to tap to reveal it. But if you're on a desktop, it'll show up at the very top of the group, the file.
Fantastic. All right. I think we should probably wrap up now. Nicola, anything else before we sign off?
No, I think we're good. We just need to let people have a hard think about their music collections.
Yeah. Don't leave this one, and make sure you set that audit date. And we're going to be following that up on the wrap-up day. Everyone needs to have an audit date set. Okay, have a think about it. It's been great spending time with everyone today. Keep those comments and questions coming in and ideas, and we'll see you for day 5 tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
See you then.
See you.